Welcome, everybody, to the Texas Grassroots Alliance live stream. It is May 15th, 2024. I hope everyone is having a great start to the week as we are midway through. I'm Alexander Montalvo with the GAP Network, a member of the Texas Grassroots Alliance. And with me, as most times, is Neil Aquino with the Houston Democracy Project. How's it going, Neil?
All good. Good morning, everybody. Good to see everyone.
All right. We've got a couple of additional guests from the Texas Grassroots Alliance with us today. Trish Contreras with Indivisible Austin. Hey, Trish.
Hey, everyone.
We've got Ted Clem also with Indivisible Austin.
Hello.
And we got Stephanie Swanson with a couple of different hats, the Texas Poor People's Campaign, League of Women Voters. Hey, Stephanie.
Hey, how you guys doing?
Doing great. All right. We've got some folks already tuning in. Thanks for joining us. Feel free to add your comments or questions in whatever platform you're watching us. Right now, we're on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Instagram. And today we are here to talk about and highlight an amazing organizer that we unfortunately have lost this year, Roxy Williamson out of Galveston, Texas. Roxy is was an amazing organizer in Galveston and throughout Texas, doing amazing work that we're going to highlight and spotlight as we celebrate her life, the love she had for everyone in this work and the people that she was fighting for, and her legacy and how we are going to be working to keep her legacy alive. So let me share the obituary that was released by Galveston News with Roxy. There she is. Roxy was born May 17th, 1969 to Valerie Hall and Norman Mason in Galveston, Texas. She transitioned on April 30th, 2024, peacefully at her mother's house with family and friends in her 55th year. She was preceded by her father, two children, Ashley and Damon, grandparents and uncles. She is survived by daughter Zaire, James Williamson, father of Zaire of Atlanta, Georgia, her mother Valerie Hall Christian of Lamarck, Texas, her sister Serlina Smith of Pembroke, Bermuda, Tamia Ross of Galveston, and brother Roderick Dorsey of Dickinson, Aunt Yolanda Gibson of Richmond, Texas, Lester Green of Dickinson, Texas. Her nieces, great niece, nephews, cousins, friends, family, and sorority sisters of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated. Roxy's body was donated to science with UT Health in Houston, and her memorial service will be on May 17, 2024, the year of her birth back from 1969, at Holy Rosary Catholic Church, 2 p.m., and a celebration of Roxy's life will take place at Wright CUNY Park at 5:30 to 7:30. In lieu of flowers, donations can be sent to the family, the Grassroots Coalition, which is the Texas Grassroots Alliance, Black Voters Matter, and Go to for Lung Cancer. So we're going to go ahead and share some of those links. If folks are interested in donating and supporting the work that Roxy was connected to and organizations that supported her, you can donate to the Texas Grassroots Alliance. You can scan that QR code off your screen or click on the link. You can also donate to Black Voters Matter. You can scan that QR code or click on the link. And then you can also donate to Go to for Lung Cancer, which unfortunately was the illness that Roxy was battling. She had stage 4 lung cancer, and we're going to talk a little bit more about her story and her experience. But each of these organizations are efforts that she would like folks to donate to, and they are doing great work to keep Roxy's legacy alive. bio that we have. She wrote herself when Neil, you got to interview her on a live stream prior to what the TGA live stream was, that you did on your Facebook page with organizers. That I think, is it still on your Facebook page?
Oh boy, it is. Um, yes, it is. And navigating you to it, I don't know, but it's there. I'll look for it and maybe it's something that.
Yeah, so if folks want to check it out, they can search Neil Aquino, Roxy Williamson on Facebook. And our hope is that you'll be able to find that amazing interview that y'all had. But for Roxy's biography, here's some information we like to share. Roxy D. Hall Williamson is a native Texan born on Galveston Island. Her activism began as an undergraduate at Savannah State University in the late 1980s, where she organized around campus issues, served as peer counselor, marched to free Nelson Mandela from a epically long incarceration, and fought to end the scourge of apartheid in South Africa. And in fact, let me share my screen again so we can see a picture of Roxy as we are highlighting this.
Born on the island, BOI, born on the island. That's a distinction of note in Galveston.
Yeah, it's definitely significant. Participating in a foreign exchange program in Isle Life, Nigeria. I believe that's how you pronounce it. I may mispronounce a few things, so my apologies to everyone. In 1992, she studied language and culture while also learning about local politics on an international scale. She graduated in 1993 with a Bachelor's of Arts degree in English, Language, and Literature with a minor in biology, immunology. In 2007, Roxy began volunteering with local organizations, examples like the Galveston County Gulf Coast Black Nurses Association, providing meals to county residents, transporting elderly members of her congregation to church, and assisting the local government and volunteering at polling places through various organizational opportunities. Always open to learn, her summer travel to Bermuda that summer offered yet more avenues to participate in community engagement and educational events focused on local issues and policy implementation. As a member of Crew Desperate Rosaire, Galveston's only Black Mardi Gras crew, she served as Mardi Gras Queen 2005 to 2007. In this role, she served her community in various capacities, including delivering food to the local food bank in honor of Congressman Mickey Leland and Mickey Leland's food drive at the Holy Rosary Catholic Church. Late 2007, the Obama campaign offered local opportunities for volunteerism, of which Roxy chose to continue learning how polling place operations were conducted, as well as serving as a poll watcher. Hurricanes Ike and Rita prompted Roxy's return to East Point, Georgia in 2008, where she continued to volunteer for the Obama campaign, as well as local and municipal races throughout Metro Atlanta throughout the course of several years, such as Nikema Williams and Stacey Abrams campaigns, while simultaneously providing text and social media support for the Beto O'Rourke campaign via the MOVE organization in 2018. Roxy moved back to Texas in September 2018, where she began to immediately work with the Texas Democratic Women of Galveston County and the Texas Coalition of Black Democrats. She worked with the Southern Coalition for Social Justice's Crowd Fellowship Program, focusing on nonpartisan, independent, progressive legislation, as well as redistricting and voting rights work. Engaged and passionate, voting rights and educating the electorate were her top priorities as she built her career in the Texas political arena. Roxy has graced the cover of the National Geographical article "We're Still on a March Forward for Absolute Equality" from June 18th, 2021, which we'll share here a little bit later. She's was developing the Third Coast Live Galveston, a platform of television segments on Thiz TV app for Roku television, featuring local happenings in Galveston County and Galveston. She lends her writing to Culture Clash Galveston, contributing to articles, Does Galveston Value Its African American History? And Voting is Our Love Language, in which we'll highlight some of those articles. And last but not least, we want to share that Roxy's list of organizational affiliations are as follows. She was the founder of the Galveston Island Voter Education Resource and Services, Givers, Texas. She was on the Knights of Peter Claver Ladies Auxiliary. She was the junior daughter counselor with them. She was a Creux d'Esprit Rosier member, NAACP Galveston, the Legal Redress Committee and Criminal Justice Committee, the Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority, Beta Phi Omega Connection Committee Chair. She was part of the Alliance for a New Justice. Our Vote Texas as a board member. She was a part of Push Democracy Forward, a ground game organizer and political strategist. She was a coalition leader and facilitator with Indivisible Text Ledge. She was a volunteer with Absolute Equality, a volunteer and partner advocate with Black Voters Matter, as well as a grant recipient. She was a volunteer with Black Lives Matter, a volunteer with National Action Network, a volunteer with the NIA Cultural Center, a tour guide and certified tourism ambassador, and volunteer for Juneteenth Legacy Project. She was an advocate for The Future Is Us. She worked in partnership with Vote Simple. She volunteered with When We All Vote and a participant in Higher Heights. She was a member of the National Council of Negro Women and a participant of the Urban League. She was also a participant of the National Underground Railroad Freedom Center. She was a member of the Texas Grassroots Alliance and helped facilitate a Galveston, Texas tour in partnership with Indivisible Text Ledge, as well as connected with organization New Endeavor Texas as a part of the Galveston infrastructure that was being developed and will continue to be developed for grassroots organizing. So I think there's probably plenty more that we know Roxy was connected with, but that is just a sample for everyone of the immense amount of work Roxy did in Texas and the impact she made with her life, her advocacy, and her love for the people and fighting for the people. So I'm going to open it up. Let's take a moment to hear from folks that we have, Neil, Trish, Ted, and Stephanie. I'd love for y'all to share y'all's experience with Roxy, the work that you were able to do, and just your reflections on her amazing life and legacy.
Let me defer. Let me defer to Stephanie.
I met Roxy during my work with the Texas Coalition. We hosted 2 mapping fellows in conjunction with the Southern Coalition for Social Justice. And those mapping fellows were charged with going around the state and helping local jurisdictions navigate the redistricting process. And so in Galveston specifically, that's Roxy's hometown. As you guys just heard, we had a very bad encounter with some very evil commissioner court members who tried to dismantle a district that was performing in Galveston County, and the Black community and the Hispanic community there were voting together to elect a candidate of choice, and they had been doing so since the 1990s. The Commissioner's Court decided to redraw that district and get rid of it in violation of the Voting Rights Act. And so Roxy and I went around in Galveston, mainly Roxy because that's where she's from, and she got all the organizations involved to come out to Commissioner's Court for the hearing on the maps. She did a really amazing job educating the community on what was going on and why they should care. And at that hearing, you guys should have seen it. She helped fill that room with folks. And it was members of the community that were deeply connected, and everyone came and spoke their piece to the commissioner's court. She did a really amazing job organizing the community for that hearing, and she helped create a record for litigation. We stepped in. She was working with the NAACP as well on that effort, and the NAACP and LULAC filed a lawsuit against the county. That lawsuit was won at the lower district court level, so a Trump-appointed judge actually sided with the plaintiffs, the NAACP and LULAC, and ordered the county to redraw that district and put it back in place. But the commissioner court members, the defendants, appealed to the Fifth Circuit, and yesterday the Fifth Circuit heard that case en banc, meaning the whole appeals court was sitting to hear the arguments and review what they think should happen next. So it's a very important court case, especially for Texas. It's going to determine whether or not Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act, how it's been functioning for the past 40 years, will continue to operate to its fullest in Texas by allowing coalition districts to be drawn. And Roxy was an instrumental part of that court case. So when you called me this morning or texted to say you should hop on and talk about Roxy, I definitely wanted to let folks know about all the amazing work that she did for that court case. And I'm just terribly sad that she's not going to be here now for the resolution of the case. But we are going to continue to keep fighting because I know that's what she would want us to do. Does
Thank you, Jeff, and just that amazing work. Go for it.
I was just going to say, does someone else want to step in now so I don't start crying?
Trish.
Yeah, it's true. It's hard to keep your composure when you lose someone as special as Roxy was. But yeah, the first time I met Roxy was at a Texas Grassroots Alliance Zoom meeting. And obviously it was the first time that I heard her speak so passionately about not just the issues, but what was important to her and what she felt that the Texas Grassroots Alliance should focus on. The very first time I saw her in person was actually at a TGA Texas Summit. Not the summit, the Texas tour.
Mm-hmm.
We discussed so much about not just the issues, but there was training sessions, and there was, it was actually the very first time that I really comprehended what it meant to getting out of our silos, and that was because of Roxy. She was absolutely amazing. When I heard her speak, it would move you. It moved me to a place that I had really no idea that I had in me as well. And that was really doing whatever it was necessary in order to not just have folks get registered to vote, but also the organizing work itself in all forms of issues, right? We had not just the voting issue, but we have the bills that were passed in the Texas legislature that we can consider are being racist in nature. She was passionate, extremely passionate about the work that she was doing in reminding us that she was, sorry, I'm a little nervous, so you'll have to bear with me, but she was really passionate about organizing at a local level and reminding us that is exactly where the work really should happen, is at a local level, and not necessarily sometimes we tend to think about things and issues on a broader national level. and when the real true power that we hold is at a local level. So, and that's where that's where those changes need to happen. Um, and I would say that, sorry, I would say that although she herself was brave and full of laughter, and her laughter, can I say, was completely contagious. Um, I remember that, and I might be jumping around. It's just that so many things about Roxy come to my mind. It's like I don't know exactly what to talk about. There's just so much. But I remember we had a conversation when she was in Austin for that Texas tour, and she needed a ride back to her hotel, and it was pretty far. But in that short period of time, we discussed so many issues, and so much about the culture that we live in, but also um, the activism work that was happening in Texas alone. And so I really, really, in that very short period of time, I felt like I knew her my whole life. But then she had that thing in her that where you met her, you just really felt like, where have you been? Or I have known you, or I know you, or I feel like I've known you since I was a child. I mean, that is just how I personally felt. Like I'd known her my whole life. But that's just the kind of person that she was. That's the kind of personality that she was. Um, and and I know that she, although she's no longer here, I think she left us with her bravery and her love and her compassion and her fighting spirit. And she left it to us so that we can continue the work that we're in. And I hold it really, really close to my heart because, yes, although it hurt and although I personally cried for days and days, um, it didn't stop me from thinking, or at least in that very moment and during that moment, as much as you sometimes want to give up because this work is really, really difficult to do. Um, the organizing work, that is, um, I am pulling from the strength that she left us, and picked myself up and said, I got to go on. This is what she would want. I gotta, we got a lot of work to do, and I'm just thankful that she left us the strength to do that.
Perfect. Good. Ted.
Yeah, I remember Roxy from multiple events, but the event down in Galveston that she hosted was so spectacular. Uh, she's the hostess with the mostest. She always came out with love. She was always happy to see me, and I was happy to see her. She took us all around Galveston and showed us the famous mural about the federal troops landing at Galveston, which is so beautiful. And going into the bookstore next door and talking to the local historian, and just people that would come into the stores that we went to several other stores, and she was so aligned with the store owners, and then people, she knew almost everybody that came in, and it was just her warmth, just it was so great. Uh, so yeah, I remember her for her love, her strength, her passion, her fight, and just persistence or traits. But her warmth was the highest trait that I can think of. That's it.
I connected her with a reporter for the Galveston County Commissioner's Court issues. And it was funny because the reporter had reached out to me and she was like, you're working on this, did you know of anyone? And I go, yes. And I told her Roxy was there, and she goes, okay, I already met Roxy yesterday. She showed me all around the island. I'm so glad. I said to listeners, Roxy was already there because Roxy was always up there advocating, and so they had already connected. And she's like, "I'm so glad you took me to Roxy. Now I feel like I can go ahead and go on with the interview." So it was just, yeah, that's who Roxy is, right? Or she was always out. She's doing amazing work.
Yeah, I find it also. I've been working with the Texas Progressive Caucus and such, and when I had no idea just how many people knew her. Uh, so we also had a long discussion about how Roxy affected, everyone, and to see just how many people knew her across Texas was just, it blew my mind. Um, but that's just the kind of person that she was. She would make such an impact, and not just through the Zoom calls, but having meet her in person, and just her passion, and speaking about what was important, what she felt was important, in organizing work, and what is needed, in Texas. But yeah, it blew my mind. I mean, there was, yeah, everybody that met Roxy uh, got to know her and her history in that very short period of time. It was just amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. We're always educating, always connecting, always building relationships in our work. Neil, do you want to share some of your experiences with Roxy?
Yeah. So that to make an organizing point, it's great that as fellow organizers with Roxy, we're able to help create this infrastructure of remembrance, and that's part of activism is the care of other activists. And this program is itself an organizing. Um, we've heard I knew Roxy in many of the same ways people here did, through events, through in-person meetings, through the Texas Grassroots Alliance. On my Facebook page, there were many, like it's been noted, many folks who knew her, just all sorts of folks, and it was clear the impact that both long-term and short-term relationships with Roxy made. In the bio that she wrote, um, born on the island, and you can see her life intertwined with Galveston, a reference to Juneteenth, and of course Juneteenth was in Galveston. That's where it began. There's a tremendous history in Galveston. It was kind of an Ellis Island of the South. The first black heavyweight champion, Jack Johnson, was from there. She was displaced to Atlanta, where she did more work by hurricanes, and the 1900 hurricane, and we know that hurricanes are political in the current era, and displaced by Ike, and which was 1908, September of 2008. Many people were displaced by Ike, and it became a source of sort of a rightward drift of Galveston politics, unfortunately. Fights over who could come back. So she was someone who was very much intertwined with the history of an historic place, and made her own history too, and moved that history forward and in a better direction than, unfortunately, some of the trends in Galveston and Galveston County were or have been over the last number of years, unfortunately. So it was great to know Roxy, and to meet her. The impactfulness of just even a short time of knowing her has been made. Point that's made by better here than I'm making, but it's true, and great that we're able to recall her, and we have these structures to recall her because of the work she did, and just so interesting to think about a person coming from an historic place who made their own history and is remembered in a place that is so interesting and distinct, as with Roxy. So that's what I have.
Yeah, I think this is so important, Neil, what you're talking about. What everyone is sharing here is that um, the work that grassroots organizers are doing in Texas is truly historic. And it is a part of doing work that a lot of times people don't get to see. We don't have the capacity sometimes, the bandwidth, or the time to share what is happening as we are navigating the day to day in a multitude of different ways through building relationships, building collaborations, developing efforts, and just investing in the growth and sustainability is our goal for all of this work. Um, and the opportunity to be able to highlight Roxy's life and legacy, I think, is a huge accomplishment that grassroots organizers across Texas should be um, very proud of, because this has been a collective work of many to build the Texas Grassroots Alliance. Folks may see Neil and myself on these live streams more than others, but hopefully over the last several months, you've seen different organizers come in from all parts of Texas, and there's many, many more that are working together to try to make the impact in Texas that we all want to see, where this is a place that people can thrive and not just fight for survival. That every community member has an opportunity to be able to live their fullest life, and there's a lot of work we have to do in Texas to be able to do that. And my connection with Roxy and that opportunity to build that relationship with her came through advocacy at the Texas legislature, seeing how much of an amazing advocate she was, um, storming the steps of the Capitol in a way that we want to see our fellow citizens and residents do, unlike what the insurrectionists did when they're not happy about something and attacking our institutions to the point of trying to destroy them. Roxy was tackling the steps of the Texas Capitol with her whole self, her whole history, and for the benefit of the people, to fight for justice, to fight for rights, to fight for um, the things that were needed that she was seeing in her own life, the struggles of, when it came to the impacts of poverty, the impacts of not having health care, the impacts of not having housing, um, the impacts of public education not being resourced, and on and on and on. And so seeing her on the front lines of going to those committee hearings, to giving testimony, to speaking outside the Capitol, um, and just doing that work. And then, like all of you have shared, sharing the history of Galveston, sharing her love for Galveston. And when we got to visit Galveston a couple of different times, the joy she had in being able to share the story of Galveston with others. What we're going to do right now is share some of that history that has been documented with Roxy through various publications that others have written and incorporated her into or spotlighted her, and then also her writings that she's done. So I'm going to pull up a couple of different articles for us to be able to reflect on and share. Um, this is from The Guardian, which is a publication that goes around the world, that Roxy is there with her official Juneteenth logo of Juneteenth that she was always educating folks around. That this red, white, and blue um, imagery and the curved horizon was important to the legacy of the Juneteenth movement and the fight for Black Americans to be seen as Americans, and their belief that there was a future in that horizon for them because of Juneteenth. Um, but this particular article talks about the work that was mentioned around the Commissioner's Court um, being, gerrymandered, that violated the Voting Rights Act, and the way they were trying to suppress power of diverse communities within Galveston, and how Galveston County was on the front line of this fight, and the work that was done within this. So there's going to be a couple articles we'll highlight around this, and we'll put the links in the chat so folks can see whatever platform they can see. The several were sharing the story site, this kind of gerrymandering that was done in Galveston County. But yeah, there was Roxy right there on the front lines, being a part of the story. Um, um, Here it says a community advocate born and living on Galveston Island poses for portrait near the Strand in Galveston. In relation to that, we have this Texas Tribune article where the headline is a GOP power grab shatters 30 years of political progress for Black voters in Galveston County related to the same issue. But what I really want to spotlight in this is this photo, because this mural of Galveston history in Juneteenth was something she was so proud to see. And this is at the unveiling of that mural that Roxy was able to be in front of for this picture to be taken, and had brought a lot of us to that. Ted mentioned, when we were in Galveston, we were brought to this mural. She talked about it. We entered the museum where we got to talk to local historians, which Roxy was one of them as well. And it's a beautiful image to show the legacy and the work that's going to live on because of the contributions Roxy did. So I'll take a pause there just to get y'all's thoughts on the Guardian article and this Texas Tribune article and the mural, just to see, what things come to mind for you.
The museum, when we visited, when we were in Galveston, that she gave us that tour, there was a specific moment where we were, it was like behind a staircase in the corner or something, where we got to see the hand imprints on the wall. I don't know if anyone else remembers that, which were the hands of the slaves that were there at that time. And that really had a huge impact on me, because you could literally see the hand imprints on the walls. And yeah, the tour itself was absolutely just amazing. I learned so much about Galveston. But that was one area that I was impacted by in that tour. Thanks to her, that is.
I think what a lot of people don't know is that she had been struggling with cancer for the last 2 years of her life, about maybe a little more than that. And through that time period, she was still out in the community. So she was getting treatment, but then she was still out in the community almost every day, as much as she could, advocating and fighting for justice. And I don't know if I could have done that. She had so much determination. It was just awe-inspiring. She was a force to be reckoned with, for sure.
And just really quickly, and Stephanie, you're right. It was incredible to still see her out and about doing the work, including traveling to Austin just to be at an organizing community event potluck. That was just amazing. She was still on the go. It was incredible to see. Because you're right, I don't know if I would have had the strength to do it myself, but she was amazing.
Absolutely. The next article we want to share with folks is from National Geographic from 2021, where Juneteenth was turned into a federal holiday. And the quote in the headline is, "We're still on a march forward for absolute equality." And what the significance was of Juneteenth becoming a holiday, a national holiday that was recognizing not only the significance of this moment in our history, but also helping people understand Galveston's significance in connection with this moment in history. And here's another picture of that mural that folks can see all of it there in its glory and its beauty that's there in Galveston that folks can go visit, go take a picture in front of it, and continue to elevate not only the significance of Galveston, but just the legacy of Roxy and the work that so many organizers have done within that community. Um, the mural is titled Absolute Equality and is displayed in downtown Galveston, Texas by Reginald C. Adams, was the muralist for this effort. And then this is the museum, the Juneteenth Legacy Project headquarters, that folks can learn a lot more history. I remember there's a list of about 50 books um, that we received just to continue to learn more about Texas history, Black history, Galveston history, so many things to help folks understand all of the different uh, points of intersection and the president of the Juneteenth Historic Project. And being someone from Fort Worth, there was this decision for the National Juneteenth Museum to be in Fort Worth because of the work of Opal Lee. And as much as people from Galveston love and respect the work of Opal Lee and the significance of this becoming a federal holiday, from Roxy's perspective, she was a little frustrated that that museum was not in Galveston because she felt like that's where that museum should be. And so I think as someone who's in Fort Worth and is going to have access to this museum, you better believe I'm going to make sure folks know Roxy and that folks know the story of what Galveston organizers and historians were doing um, for years for this to be learned by the community, but also to be celebrated.
That's a real organizing win for Roxy and her colleagues. Because I've been, I lived in Houston for 26 years and have been to Galveston many times, and that history wasn't there 25 years ago. You would associate Galveston almost solely with the 1900 hurricane. That mural, the museum, the recognition of Juneteenth, the greater acknowledgement of Jack Johnson, which was a very strong racial flashpoint. That's all been in the last 25 years because of Roxy and her colleagues. So it's given a full, correct context to the history of Galveston beyond one more focused on the hurricane and on more traditional Texas themes. Traditional. So now a more complete and accurate history.
Any other thoughts folks would like to share about the work of the history of Galveston being known and just the power of visiting Galveston, encouragement for folks to visit Galveston?
Yeah, worth a visit. Worth multiple visits. One of the most interesting places in Texas.
I think her current work, her most previous work, really did focus on the displacement of folks off the island after the hurricane. And I had no idea that she was one of them until you guys were talking about it just a few minutes ago. But those struggles are still going on the island, and that's why she was so interested in redistricting. I just wanted to make sure that her community was still represented on the commissioner's court. So, yeah, it's just amazing that I didn't know that about her.
We have another Texas Tribune article that Roxy's right there talking to the sole Democrat, Stephen Holmes, of the Galveston County Commissioners Court, as they as the news was being spread that they found the county districts denied Black and Latino voters the equal opportunity to participate in the political process. And the federal judge at that time had ruled that the maps violated the Voting Rights Act. And as Steph had shared, unfortunately, that fight is still continuing because then it got overturned, and I think it was the Fifth Circuit that was hearing stuff this week about it.
It was appealed to the Fifth Circuit, so that means the lower courts, they put the lower court's ruling on hold, so the Fifth Circuit had time to weigh in. And the Fifth Circuit, the original three-judge panel said, you see your point, but then he was shown a very elder and activist judge on the Fifth Circuit decided to hear the case en banc. And I want to be clear that it wasn't the defendants that asked for it, it was a judge, and that's not normal procedure. So the Fifth Circuit right now is one of the most conservative courts in the appeals court in the U.S., and a lot of their rulings are being appealed up to the Supreme Court. So anyways, just part of the ongoing saga in Texas.
And just for some context, it's Galveston. The fight that she was involved in was for all of Galveston County. So there's the island. And there's a peninsula, Boulevard Peninsula, which is a ferries ride across, which can be very Trumpy on Boulevard Peninsula. And in fact, they've wanted to secede from Galveston County. And then there's a mainland. There's about 350,000 people in the county, and it has steadily moved right. It has just steadily moved right over the last 25 years. And Hurricane Ike was Mayor Jaworski at the time took a brave stance. Joe Jaworski, who later ran for Attorney General, took a brave stance as mayor and lost his seat over it. That he wanted people displaced by the hurricane able to come back. And because the hurricanes are political, like we saw with Katrina in New Orleans, the hurricane was used for some nasty right-wing, just basically social engineering or population displacement. That's what she was fighting, and of course she was displaced herself to Atlanta, where she did work.
I think that funding for that is still being fought over today, specifically from Ike.
I believe that. Yeah, I believe that. Yeah. Just waiting for the next one.
Right. The next thing we're going to highlight for folks is writings from Roxy herself. There's a Culture Clash magazine that is digital and in print that local writers and artists contribute to from Galveston. And this is how Roxy was once again contributing to the story, the history, documenting contributions around the work that she's doing, but also centered with Galveston. So the Culture Clash magazine is something that folks can check out, and you can read Roxy's articles, to this day. One of her articles was "Voting is Our Love Language," and it was focused around an issue around women and women's rights and everything. And so when you read Roxy's writings, you feel that energy just come through the page. The passion that Roxy lived with, that has been mentioned, that when you work with her, when you talk to her, it is evident in her writing as well. She did not hold back. She told it like it is, and she made sure that people were going to be forced to confront the truth. And that was just an embodiment of who she was as a person. And so here she writes about various historic moments around the fight for voting rights and what is happening currently. She even mentioned Southlake, Texas, here in Tarrant County. And as folks know, Southlake, Texas continues to be in the news because Department of Justice is challenging a lot of the work that's happening with Carroll ISD. But this is a great article that talks about intersectionality, that talks about how one thing that impacts one person impacts us all. We have talked about Alyssa Simmons from Tarrant County, who's a county commissioner for Precinct 2. And she lifts up Alyssa Simmons in this article as one of, the women, Black women that are leading in communities throughout Texas. And so if there's one thing that folks need to know about Roxy is that she was plugged into Texas, not just Galveston, but across the state. And she was making sure that folks had access to this knowledge and information. And these are one of the ways that she did that. She did it through training, she did it through facilitation, she did it through partnerships, but she also did it through writing these articles. So highly encourage folks reading any of these articles. Another one was focused on the alleys of Galveston and talking about how she grew up exploring the back alleys of Galveston, and it gave her a sense of empowerment and excitement, and the needed relief from tourists and their lunacy-induced driving on the main thoroughfares. It's a part of the culture, the subculture in Galveston that people may not understand or know, that she gave people a preview into, gave them a behind the curtain, behind the scenes look of her community. And then lastly, I want to share this article of does Galveston value its African American history? And this is that as born on island identification, that you're mentioning, but that Roxy's frustration was that all this news and information was happening around Juneteenth, and local leaders in Galveston were not doing anything to make sure that Galveston was centered in that news and centered in the information. And so she openly questioned, why is Galveston doing that? Why are they not centering Juneteenth and Galveston and making that known, and question what leaders' motivations could be behind not making sure that Galveston was a part of the national conversation and things like that. So these are just a couple of her writings. There's many more that she contributed to in different publications. But would love to hear y'all's thoughts about, some of these writings, if you got a chance to read some of those, or just some of the topics that she's covering here.
I'll say quickly, not referenced in her bio, but not there. Her participation in Black Mardi Gras was very important to her. When I interviewed her, she discussed that at length. That was referenced in her bio. And there is an extensive Mardi Gras celebration in Galveston, and that all comes with a lot of segregation and racial history. And that was, her participation was a big point of pride for her.
All right. Going to post a couple of these articles here in the chat so folks can have the links to be able to participate in learning and reading the work that Roxy did. I want to share finally a couple of pictures of Roxy, and then we're going to end it with a interview she gave with Go To Lung for lung cancer. But this is a trip. Givers was her organization that she founded that was focused on Galveston, that many of us were working to try to help develop and sustain. And I can promise you we're going to continue to work on the efforts that she started in Galveston with other organizers who are still working there. But this is a trip that several organizers from TGA got to make to see Galveston, to see Roxy in Galveston before she passed on Sunday, April 28th. And so we're just really thankful to be there outside in front of her mother's garden at her house, and then to be able to share stories and reflect during dinner. Um, the Texas tour was mentioned. This was in Galveston, April 23rd, 2022. That was really excited, something that Roxy was really excited to bring to Galveston after our inaugural Texas tour in Austin. And as Trish shared, this was something about trying to help organizers talk through and understand the importance of collaboration and being out of our silos, and which is directly tied to what the Texas Grassroots Alliance is trying to do, to connect, to collaborate, and to build out this organizing infrastructure. Black Voters Matter was there. Deanna LaFay was the state organizer for Black Voters Matter. It was the first time I got to, and several others got to interact with Black Voters Matter. At that time, they were celebrating and nearing their first year anniversary of working in Texas. And so their work has been impactful for many, including Roxy, with the resources they were able to allocate. And this is a part of that relationship. But organizers were coming together and asking questions like, what has failed in the progressive platform? If one candidate can't save us, should we invest in a pipeline of leadership? And I think one of the most important questions that Galveston organizers asked at this Texas tour was, has personal disconnection or lack of led to the death of democracy in Texas, and is it still attainable? And it's just an emphasis around how relationships, grassroots organizing at its core is about building relationships within community and the work it takes to build those relationships so that we can then collaborate and work together. And every part of Texas that I've had the privilege to be able to talk to organizers wrestle with these type of questions, but especially this one about relationships. Have we normalized a way of interacting with each other that does not require connection, real connection, and is that hurting our democracy? And that's something that definitely we're going to continue in this work. This was Roxy in South Texas, canvassing and block walking with the Jessica Cisneros campaign. We can see Ted is there doing the hard work on the ground as well. Here's Roxy right here in the middle. And then we have Trish right there as well. And my mom also got to join us. And I want to give a spotlight to this picture that Roxy took with my mom, because Roxy met her, and within 10 minutes, they were sisters. And they were sisters in a lot of different ways. As we mentioned, Roxy's birthday is May 17th, and that's when her memorial will be this Saturday. And my mom's birthday is May 18th. And so they talked about that connection they had between their birthdays. And then this is Trish and Roxy knocking on those doors in South Texas, in Laredo, where we don't anticipate it to be too cold, but for that weekend, it was kind of chilly. Trish, Ted, anything you want to share about that?
No, it was cold, Alex. It was not kind of cold. It was freezing. We were out on the streets and we were knocking on doors and having conversations. Some of the doors that we knocked on were not friendly ones, but even so, we got some really good conversations out of those. Even those that disagreed with us, we were talking about 15-minute conversations at their doors. Just talking more importantly about the importance of voting. Even if you're not voting for one party or the other, just go vote. Doesn't matter. Just it's important to vote. But yes, it was freezing cold, and we were also, after the door knocking, we also had our lunch right next to the actual river, and that was freezing too. But yeah, it was an amazing trip. It was an amazing canvassing event, and she made it fun. And once we got to, I was telling Alex the other day that when we had that first night there, um, we just wanted to chat, right? Everyone had gone to bed already, but there we are calling each other. Hey, you come over to my room. No, you come over to mine. She finally came over to mine, and we were talking all night, and we spoke for the entire night, all the way to the morning, just laughing and really getting to know each other even on a more personal level by talking about our families and our health and our our struggles as well. And at one point, we were laughing so hard that we were like, shh, just keep it down. Alex is going to come over here and knock on our door and tell us to get to bed, that we had more canvassing to do the next morning. But she was, she was amazing. Great. Just a great sense of humor. But yeah, it was cold, not kind of cold. It was cold.
Ted, anything you'd like to share about that experience in South Texas?
Well, just the only point, which is not so much about Roxy, but this was a joint effort between Indivisible and I believe it's Magenta, a
Mi
Latino,
gente.
Magenta. Sorry about that. Latino Hispanic organization that was getting out the vote for Jessica Cisneros, and it was as usual, Roxy was her full self.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was a great time. And I've been digging through all these pictures over the years with Roxy that so many folks have been sharing and everything. And the week of her passing, I was on a call with South Texas organizers with the Texas Turnout Coalition, and I had mentioned how all the ways that Roxy's work was connected with so many folks in Texas and so many people in that room, and there was connections through that work. But I forgot to mention this trip to Laredo, even though there was other connections. And so as we've been navigating these pictures and reflecting on Roxy's life and her legacy, I wanted to make sure that those were brought in because that was an amazing weekend, an amazing moment for us to all have together. For New Endeavor Texas, it's been an organization where we're focused on building local infrastructure. We brought organizers from South Texas, from Hidalgo County with Rosangela Hartford, Lydia Ozuna out of Fort Bend, Lydia Faith from Tarrant County was there, and Roxy out of Galveston was there. And it was a great kind of end of the year retreat back in 2022 where we continue to bring in organizers' perspectives around what we're trying to do and build to help develop organizers. And later the next year in 2023 at South by Southwest, New Endeavor Texas started launching its messaging Unfuck Texas. And the point of that messaging is that Unfuck Texas needs to happen because Texans are being fucked over in so many ways, but that we won't unfuck Texas until we resource and support grassroots organizers. And so Roxy was there on the front lines, helping with that messaging, talking to people from across the globe, Brazil, Australia, countries in Europe, different folks in Texas, different folks in the United States, from Massachusetts, and also folks from Canada and Mexico. And so she was there spreading the good word around what we were trying to do in Texas and getting support for New Endeavor Texas. And it was a privilege to be in that space with her. One of the things from the retreat that we got a quote from various organizers. One of them was from Roxy, and she talked about building community infrastructure will uplift community leaders out of poverty while also doubling down on the crucial work of defending and preserving the democratic process in vulnerable cities across the state. And it's one thing we've talked about in the Texas Grassroots Alliance that there's the vast majority of grassroots organizers in Texas right now working every single day, not only for this election year, but for their communities, for their, in their school districts, city councils, county commissioners court, the ledge, and on and on and on, doing mutual aid work, doing different types of work to support the community. And unfortunately, the majority are unpaid and not getting the resources they need. And too many organizers like Roxy are battling poverty alongside this fight and this work. And also in Roxy's case, she was also, like Steph shared, battling through treatments for her stage 4 cancer and still out there in the street. And so this is something fundamentally we're trying to solve through New Endeavor Texas, through Texas Grassroots Alliance, through all these different efforts. Because if we want to see Texas change, we've got to support the workers who are there on the front lines doing it. One collaboration she did with Texas Grassroots Alliance, where she did several, but one was a watch party where we invited folks from across the state, and some folks joined us from across the country to have a watch party with the Lowndes County and the Road to Black Power. And Roxy was watching this documentary quite a bit for inspiration and wanted to share with other folks. Once again, always having that lens of history. And she facilitated the conversation after, as well as facilitating in the chat while we're watching this documentary. She was in that chat talking about different points, encouraging people's interaction, and just doing an amazing work with helping people learn about this. So if you haven't checked out this documentary, I believe it's on it's on Peacock streaming service. Definitely encourage you to check it out. This is Roxy at the Poor People's Campaign in Washington, D.C., that several organizers from across the state got to join to be at for their mass assembly and the work that was starting to develop for this year's election cycle, and just the importance of people understanding death sentence in our country due to poverty. And so, Steph, I'd love to see if you can share some of the work of the Poor People's Campaign and just the importance of folks like Roxy participating.
You could put me on the spot. The Poor People's Campaign started back up in 2017. Reverend Barber and Reverend Liz Harris are our national co-chairs, and they are fighting to end poverty in Texas and across the nation. I feel like Texas is a big part of the story, though, because every day we wake up and there's more horrible news, from the HISD takeover to the fights at the border between the governor and folks in the border communities, from folks being denied health care, 2 million people being wrongfully removed from the Medicaid rolls. It's like endless. How about the fight in Houston over UBI, universal basic income? It just seems like our leaders in Texas want to take every step to punish people. And I know part of the messaging of the Poor People's Campaign is that folks experiencing poverty going through these fights, we take that that suffering that we experience and we transform it into a voice in the legislative process and a voice in the community to mobilize folks to come out into the streets and take action to build a better life and a better community for us. So for our next leg of the campaign, we're working to get out the vote for the upcoming election. And if folks are interested, we'd love to have folks help. We're going to be doing a lot of phone banking, text banking, and community events just to mobilize folks to move in the upcoming election. And you can check out and join those efforts by signing up for our newsletter on the website and following us on social media. Alex, you're also a chair, dry chair. Do you want to mention anything else that I might have forgotten?
I think what's so amazing about the Poor People's Campaign is that, this picture shows the beauty of the diversity we have in our state and the beauty of the diversity in our movement. And I think the Poor People's Campaign is really intentional around people working in various spaces of change and justice coming together to create as big a voice as possible, as big as impact as possible, from impacted folks, poor and low income community members, activists and advocates, to faith leaders, different genders, different ages, different race and ethnicities coming together. And I think that's what was so beautiful seeing Roxy in that space, because there she is once again wearing her Galveston Juneteenth T-shirt. Right, she's in D.C., but she's still representing Galveston. That's who Roxy was. But they also had what they call theomusicology, where they have movement music, and they had singers and artists from throughout the country. And Texas didn't have a representation in terms of that artistic talent. So I want folks to know that it did not take long for Roxy to be in the front of that space, and then to also be on stage representing Texas, singing the movement music as a part of the theomusicology. And so that's just who Roxy was, and that was the beauty of the work, and how she navigated this work. This is us having dinner together as a Poor People's Campaign, because once again, in this work, sharing space, sharing community together, doing it through food, through those opportunities is important. But this is something the Texas Poor People's Campaign wrote, Steph, highlighting the story of Roxy and talking about in 2022 when she started to receive these migraines, how she had to have emergency brain surgery. And she unfortunately did not have the health care she needed, um, but eventually got treatment through indigent care. And then after a year of a treatment, it was wrongfully stopped while she was in stage 4 cancer, and she was eventually able to transition to Medicaid coverage, but she lost 3 months of treatment, and that definitely made an impact on her. She was also dealing with her housing complications, where she got wrongfully evicted and was working with legal aid to set things straight. But eventually had to, she was able to find another place to live. But these are all the things that Roxy was juggling while she was doing this work. And one of the things I'm grateful for is that in these final few years of her organizing her work, we were able to get resources allocated to her from the Texas Grassroots Alliance, through the GAP network, through Black Voters Matter, where she was able to get some resources to eventually, get a new car, because her car, she drove around with a case of oil pretty much, because the car going, and eventually she was able to get eventually she was able to afford better living space, and have resources for the work that she was doing. So a big shout out to the Texas Poor People's Campaign for highlighting her story and the impact of poverty and health inequities that contribute to people suffering, and amazing people like Roxy, unfortunately, having to suffer through that. We shared this article here, these articles earlier. But the last thing I want to share before we share the video of Roxy is her final Juneteenth celebration was able to leverage bringing in the National Black Voters Matter organization and their big bus to the Juneteenth parade. And that was something of extreme pride that Roxy had in being able to do, to be able to leverage all the relationships she had, to be able to help bring Black Voters Matter into that. They also created these T-shirts specific for Juneteenth in Galveston, Texas. That is a part of her legacy, because there's several hundred people who have these T-shirts right now, that whenever they wear it, it is part of Roxy's work, why they exist. And that's the flag that I mentioned a couple of times around the official Juneteenth flag that's in the background. And I'm going to take a quick moment of privilege to talk about what Roxy was able to provide my daughter that she's sitting there with, as she took us to the beach. She walked with Juliana on the beach one-on-one, picking up seashells and giving her wisdom and education and inspiration that I'll always be grateful for. And so that's who Roxy was. Everyone was family. Everyone was in this work together, and she was going to do everything she could to make sure everyone was able to be blessed and to be supported in their endeavors in life. So I'm going to share this video. I know we've gone over a lot longer than we were originally planning, so I appreciate everyone being able to stay on. We're going to share a final video so you can hear from Roxy herself, and then we can have some final thoughts before we end our stream today.
I'm Roxy D. Hall Williamson. I'm from Galveston, Texas. I was recently diagnosed with stage 4 non-small cell lung cancer. It was a week after my 53rd birthday. I was having severe migraines. I had to have emergency brain surgery. Pathology test of the masses off my brain was lung cancer. And it was just a shocker. I just would have never believed it. I had no coughing. I had none of the symptoms. I just didn't present any of that. But I'm stage 4. And to find out at stage 4 is devastating when there are possibilities and there are treatments and therapies that could have possibly helped you earlier along your process. So the early detection is a big deal, especially for uninsured people. We need that desperately, especially in Texas. I knew absolutely nothing about lung cancer at the time. If you've not ever been in this space, you don't even know the questions to ask. So it floored me. And I don't think it was the cancer diagnosis per se, but it was that I would receive palliative versus curative treatments. So that kind of hit like a ton of bricks. That hit like a ton of bricks. It didn't defeat me because I have an amazing family network. My mother in Texas, my sister in Bermuda. I have a very good connection with my sorority sisters. I have a really good network, and I know that I'm very blessed to have those people in my life. The Go-To for Lung Cancer family is phenomenal. They've just embraced me. I have new friends. I feel incredibly empowered. And when it comes to lung cancer and the stigmas that come with lung cancer, I'm glad I'm in a community now that I can not only help advocate for, but learn from. And I would love to prayerfully be here for years to come with Go-To for Lung Cancer to really advocate and push for more research funding. Lung cancer is the deadliest cancer and the least funded. We need to bridge the gaps and do better.
I know that's really tough for a lot of us to watch, to see Roxy in all her glory, talking about her struggle in the work and just the gratitude she always had. I want to take a moment to see if anyone has any final reflections around Roxy and the work and her legacy. Feel free to share.
I'd just like to say, I know that she's hearing us now. I just want to tell her we love you, and the work will continue, and your legacy will live on in the lives of those that you impacted. Rest in power.
Thanks, Trish.
Stephanie?
Well, I'm a hot mess, so I am just very upset that she had to go through all of this, and I don't think it's fair, and it's the reason that I wake up every morning and spend my time organizing in our communities, because I don't want to see good people like her go through what she had to go through. Seeing her again and hearing her voice was just a lot. But we will continue to organize and fight with her alongside us. with her memory, and we hope that I don't know. We hope that we can make some change in her name.
Okay.
She was an amazing person. It's and so full of love. And this tribute to her was very nice and enlightening, and I just have fond memories of her, and let her rest in peace.
Well, I'm appreciative we have the, our abilities include the capacity to remember people and honor them. Roxy, Roxy would want us to, but let's find the people in our lives like Roxy and support them. That's part of the work of activism. Deeply sorry for Roxy's passing, but we'll make her memory a blessing and proceed.
Yeah, I just want to thank everyone who has shared stories. If you visit her Facebook page, it is flooded with stories and pictures. There's so many things that we could continue talking about. She was one of the guest speakers and panelists of the inaugural Texas Grassroots Alliance summit that we had in Houston last year. Um, we will be looking for ways within the Texas Grassroots Alliance and other efforts to continue to commemorate her work, to help folks continue to learn about it. We have Egberto Willies, who said, "I'm so sorry for the loss of your friend. Let's publicize this." Egberto Willies is the host of Politics Done Right, and we've highlighted on this TGA live stream, and just also just a fellow colleague in this work, fellow organizer, trying to make sure that folks have the knowledge they need to do this work. And so help us in continuing to remember Roxy's life, her love, her legacy. If you're able to contribute to that legacy by collaborating with work throughout Texas, throughout Galveston, then that's something that you can definitely do. As a request from her obituary in Galveston News, you can also choose to donate to the Texas Grassroots Alliance to keep the work going, so that we can continue to allocate resources to organizing efforts in Galveston and throughout the state. You can also donate to Black Voters Matter, who was hugely important in these final few years of her activism and advocacy work, as there was a number of collaborations that we highlighted here today, but also just the availability of resources that Black Voters Matter made available to Roxy and other organizers throughout Texas. And then you can also donate to Go To for Lung Cancer, who was able to spotlight Roxy and her story that we get to have as another form of video documentation of the vibrance of who she was, and just the intentionality of her work and the struggle of what she was battling as she was doing this work. So we want to thank everyone for joining us for this extended reflection on Roxy's work and her life and her legacy. And we thank you for everyone who's able to join us. Keep tuned into the TJ live streams, as we'll have additional content. We'll be spotlighting the additional organizers and different efforts. I want to give a huge thanks to Neil, as always, with the Houston Democracy Project that you can support by searching for Houston Democracy Project or going to HoustonDemocracyProject.com. Is it .com or .org?
.com.
.com. HoustonDemocracyProject.com. Thanks as always, Neil, for helping co-pilot this collaboration. A big
and we
shout out
encourage
to
everyone watching. You feel free to share this show, and you can go to our Texas Grassroots Alliance YouTube page, and it's there, and all of our broadcasts.
Swanson from the Texas Poor People's Campaign, Legal Men Voters, and Trish Contreras and Ted Clem with Indivisible Austin, and all the work y'all continue to do. And thanks for your vulnerability and your availability to spend time with us today to reflect on Roxy. I know it won't be the last time, and also thankful for the work that we all get to do together. Thanks, everyone. We will see you next time.